Good morning, everyone. Gayla is having some technical difficulties, so she should be along here in just a minute, but we're going to go ahead and get started, keep things on time. While people are still joining us, I just want to remind you how to participate today. We're using a GoToWebinar platform. All attendees come in the listen-only mode. You're automatically muted. You can change your audio functionality, and I may do that through this call because sometimes my internet's been lagging over the last few weeks, but you can switch back and forth between your phone and your computer if you need to. We want this to be as interactive, and we've got two great panelists this morning, so I'm hoping that there are a lot of questions that during the webinar. You can type those into the question window on your screen. And then I will moderate those questions and ask them as we go through this, and probably add in some of my own. If for some reason we're not able to answer a question or you have other questions, there's my email address. Feel free to email me any questions that you have about our webinars. And just reminding everybody, we are recording this as we have all of our other webinars, and they are archived on our momainstreet.org website under our COVID tab. So we're actually creating a nice little library of some good sessions. In fact, we're hearing that Main Street programs are using those sessions to do trainings for their committees, their design committee or their EV committee, just because we've had some really great speakers and very relevant information. So welcome, Gayla. I told them we were having some technical issues this morning, so I am going to turn it over to you for introductions.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jill. Good morning, Megan. Great to have you guys. So we have two of our fabulous Main Street directors and local programs. Really excited that you guys are bringing this to us this morning because, as we know, by working in the field, you have the expertise to bring it to everyone, not just talking about it, but you guys have lived it. So we're really happy that you guys are doing this for us this morning. Just a little bit of background about Megan. Megan is, of course, the executive director in Trenton. After graduating with a bachelor's degree in business management, she returned to her hometown of Trenton. She has assisted the board of directors with preserving a historic building and preserving of course, working in the downtown district and launching the Main Street program. So Megan hasn't been with us a long time, but she hit the ground running in Trenton. And so we're quite proud of you, Megan. In the middle of all of this, Megan also got married. So congratulations still on that. Also, Jill has been with us for a while, not in her particular role as the director of Warrensburg, but Jill has been with Warrensburg for quite a while as well. So we're just glad to have her. But Jill grew up in Branson, actually, and so we know her family very, very well. But she's is the daughter of a small town business owner, which of course that was here in Branson, has lived in Warrensburg on and off for the past 26 years as her husband has been an Air Force pilot. And so, of course, right there close to Warrensburg is the Whitman Air Force Base. And Jill holds a Bachelor's of Science in Education from the University of Central Oklahoma. And I know we have Oklahomas on our call this morning. She previously served as the Warrensburg Main Street Events Coordinator for four years when she gained valuable experience and helped prepare to take the role of the Executive Director in 2019. So we have two beautiful women with us this morning that, again, have worked in the field, know how to do this, and we're really excited for you guys to teach us what you've learned.
Yeah, Gayla, they have some great information. I was working with them yesterday on the presentation, and so we're going to start with Megan. She's going to talk about a project that they did in Trenton. So take it away, Megan.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Megan Taul, and I want to thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to share the story and process behind the Main Street Mercantile. So I'll start with some background, and then I'll dive into some details and kind of finish with what the Mercantile is up to now. So to start, the board of directors purchased a building full of character and charm in the summer of 2018. It sits directly in the heart of our downtown district, and has been vacant for at least 15 years. The board purchased the building with their general funds from their budget and then hired a contractor. And when construction began, the goal was to save its historic features while creating a very open concept floor plan so that it could be adaptable for any type of business, whether that be retail, service, restaurant, whatever that might be. And so priorities included supporting the mezzanine that sat along the back wall, restoring the original hardwood floors, and saving the original ceiling tiles. And each of these were accomplished. However, the bulk of the hardwood floors were saved, but there was a portion in the back and then up on the mezzanine there that did have to be, that were new. And then the ceiling tiles, same thing. There was a small portion above the mezzanine there that had some water damage, so they were also replaced. But in addition to that, new windows were installed, storage rooms and an ADA restroom were created, and then new electrical was completed. So once construction was finished, the next step was to fill it. But with what? So we held an open house the following spring in March of 2019 to really showcase this transformation. We had refreshments, before and after photos, we gave tours, and we also had an area for community members to share what they wanted to see or what they really felt like our community needed in this space downtown. And we received a wide variety of feedback, all really great responses. And overall, everyone was very enthusiastic about the new life brought to this historic building. And then in the weeks following, we visited with several interested business owners, but we kept getting kind of the same response and the same feedback. They loved the space, you know, it was an ideal location. Everything was great, but they were a little worried about committing to that large of a space, that big of a building. So we went back to the drawing board. We pulled out that feedback that we had received at the open house and really started studying and reviewing it and tried to brainstorm a way we could make the most of all of these responses. And with that, we came up with the concept of using this space as a home to a variety of small businesses. And the goal with this was to have a more permanent pop-up shop that would be operated by the board of directors. We wanted to help fill these voids that the community saw while creating a place for them to shop and enjoy. But we also wanted to provide starting businesses or online-based businesses the tools, the resources, and really the support to take that next step in their business. And whether they stayed for months or years, we were hoping that they would really succeed in their space within this building and eventually outgrow and need their own storefront downtown. So we started visiting with some local small business owners, and each was very, very eager and excited about the idea. So with 9 small businesses on board, products ranged from clothing, home decor, baked goods, leather goods, locally grown beef and dairy products, gifts. We started promoting the Main Street Mercantile. So Alumni Weekend, which is Labor Day weekend in Trenton, it is a very large and busy weekend. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of people back for the weekend. So we thought, what better time? So we filled the storefront windows with balloons, coming soon sign, and posted a flyer with some brief details. And people loved it. They were excited, they were talking, they were curious, they wanted to know what was going on. So then in October, we had a soft opening, followed by a ribbon cutting and a grand opening celebration. So to dive into some of the details here, I'll start with, it took everyone's area of expertise. It took the whole village. We visited with our accountant, our attorney numerous times, and they were tremendous help in really pinning down these fine details and the legal matters. So the Mercantile created 3 part-time positions employed by the board of directors. And then board members and myself were also trained to fill in as needed, run the day-to-day tasks at the Mercantile. We started with operating hours of Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then we had extended hours during the holidays, during events, and such. And we really wanted that open concept layout. Each business had a designated area within the store, but it flowed. You could tell you were in the bakery section and then you moved to the clothing section. But if you were standing in the front door, you could see all the way to the back, which is exactly how we wanted it. The Mercantile took care of the city business license and the county merchant's license, and then each of the businesses in there were basically umbrellaed into that. And we had initially prepared a 6-month lease, but after visiting with some of the small businesses, they were a little more comfortable with a 3-month lease, so that's what we went with. We had a 30-day notice if they were planning to leave. We also had a non-compete agreement, and that was basically to an extent that the businesses could not start offering the same products as any of the other businesses within the Mercantile, because we really wanted to see each business succeed with their own unique product lines. And to begin, we had a short application. It was very, very simple, 1 sheet, their name, their business, their basic contact information, the items they offered, and then the product description. And the board would review these applications, approve them, and then a formal contract followed. The board also provided liability coverage on the building and those that entered, but each business was responsible for their own products, their inventory, and such. And they also, each business tagged and labeled each product. Most of them had their logo and the price. Some of them even put a description on the tag. And this was because we had one central cash register. We decided on the square system. For us personally, it was fantastic. It was exactly what we needed for this project. We started with categories within the system, and those essentially were the 9 businesses. And then in each business, we created subcategories. And these were general, broad, like the women's clothing boutique within hers, she might have subcategories of tops or shoes or accessories, and we kept them very broad so we didn't have a long list of inventory in the system. And then prices were left blank, and that was again so that we didn't have numerous items to search when checking out. So prices were manually entered at the register. So each business, they kept track of their own inventory, what they brought in, what was sold, and we also provided weekly sales reports to each business. It was an item sales summary that included the number of items sold, gross and net sales, taxes, and any discounts that they had offered. And then same thing at the end of the month, we provided a monthly report. It covered the same line items, but for the entire month. And then we cut them a check for their sales and taxes. So for advertising, we promoted the Main Street Mercantile through our local newspaper, our local radio station, we created a separate Facebook page for the Mercantile from our downtown Main Street Trenton page. But what was really great was that each of these businesses also had their own business Facebook pages. So they were promoting their own products and their own services and sharing what the Mercantile was posting. And so, simple things like, we're adding this to the store, be sure to stop in and check it out. So a customer that was coming in for one item was also exposed to the other 9 small businesses. So overall, just increasing our target audience, which was fantastic. So what is the Mercantile up to now? After 6 months of growing, 2 of those small business owners decided to join together and co-own the Mercantile. So they are now renting the building from us and running the Mercantile there. And they kept the same business concept and each of the small businesses while adding 4 new small businesses, making the Mercantile home to now 13 small businesses and artisans, which is phenomenal. And this transition actually took place right around the time the pandemic hit and the shutdown began. But these gals maintained an extremely strong mentality despite closing all of April. As soon as they literally took over, they started, I think it was April 1, but they used that time to rearrange the store, make some changes that really made it home to them. And the Mercantile is thriving and then some. Each business owner is succeeding both in the store and in their online presence. So we are truly grateful to have them downtown and in our community.
Great job. Thanks, Megan. I've got some questions, Jill, before we jump into you that are related to some of the things Megan said. So I think let's just go ahead and take those real quick. Megan, you mentioned in the beginning about general funds paid for the renovation, but had a question about where did the organization get those general funds? Was it through dues or fundraising for specific projects? How did that money come about?
Yes, so this specifically came from some NAP credits that they had from the past. But then in addition, they had the dues from partnerships and fundraisers.
Okay, and NAP being a Neighborhood Assistance Program, tax credit program. Okay, perfect. Hats off, great compliments about how it looks, some good things about how it's not chopped up like you see in a lot of thrift shops. They like the open floor plan. Someone asked about maintaining ownership long-term, and I think we addressed that. You're leasing the building currently, but I believe you shared yesterday that there is conversation about them possibly purchasing the building.
Yes, yep, we have started that conversation and we are very excited about what the future looks like there.
Great. And then do you have stats on sales revenue compared to rent and other expenses incurred by each tenant?
I do not, but on the month to month, it kind of varied. Of course, sales were definitely increased to that holiday season because the store was still new. Everyone was bringing in new products and all sorts of sales. So we definitely had an increase during the holiday season.
Okay, and I may have missed it. Do you take a percentage of sales from each vendor, or is it a monthly rental fee?
We had just a monthly rental fee.
Okay.
And then we also had the employee.
Okay, great. Yeah, because you had to pay the employee. Yeah.
Yes.
So someone asked, are you considering selling the building, which we talked about, and do you think you would acquire another building and do the same thing?
We would love to. We don't have anything on target at the moment, but we are always open to the next one.
Okay. And then last question, is there a vendor waiting list? Do you have a waiting list to get in, or is the space at capacity with people waiting?
Yes, so when we, after the 6 months, we had a waiting list, and I think they still do, and they have, of course, expanded the number of businesses, but after that alumni weekend, we had a lot of people inquire about what was going on, more information, and we had maxed it out at 9 because that's what worked for us at the time. but they have since expanded and now have 13, and it is full and it is beautiful, and they have done a fantastic job.
Great, great. And the one thing I want to leave with is we weren't talking about it here, but this is more of kind of a pop-up experience that you guys had. You didn't have any restaurants in your downtown, so you wanted to show that there was a demand for a downtown restaurant. So you worked with a food truck. Just in 2 or 3 minutes, tell us what you did there.
Yeah. So Food Truck Days actually also stemmed from that feedback we received at the open house there where the Mercantile now is. One of the most common, if not the most common response was restaurant, a cafe, an eatery, people wanted food. So we were trying to figure out how to convey the need for a restaurant in our downtown district. So that summer of 2019, we held Food Truck Days as a pop-up or a way for these food truck vendors to kind of test the water in our community. Every Wednesday from 11 to 2, we shut down a one-way street right off of our Main Street, and a different food truck came in and served lunch. I'd say on average, 200 to 250 people were served each time. We had tables, chairs, music. It was great to see people enjoying their time. And several downtown businesses also ran sidewalk sales at the same time. So people were out shopping, eating, having a great lunch break. And actually one of the food trucks were so thrilled with the response that they received that they actually opened a restaurant downtown. They have invested in downtown. They purchased a vacant building that was actually on the street where we had Food Truck Days, which was awesome. So they've restored its historic integrity and created a modern and industrial atmosphere, and actually just opened last fall.
Great, great. Awesome. Thank you, Megan.
Yes, thank you.
And feel free, if you think of other questions for Megan, we'll do another Q&A at the end with both of our panelists. So keep the questions coming. I did share in the question chat box. Someone asked for your email address, Megan, so I shared that with them. So that's in there if anybody else wants it also to do any follow-up with Megan. Great. Thanks, Megan. All right,
Thank
Jill.
you.
Jill, I think you're on mute still.
There we go. Hi, I'm Jill with Warrensburg Main Street, and I'm going to talk to you today about incubator spaces. So Warrensburg Main Street has had incubator spaces in some way since 1997. We had our first incubator space, and it was a partnership with a local bank. So the local bank funded the program, and Main Street managed the program. So we took on the applications, and we decided who would be a great fit for that incubator space. The incubator business had to pay $200 a month for rent, and they also had to pay their own utilities. They could stay in that incubator space for about 18 months, and the space was about 600 square feet. So it was a really small space, which was great for new businesses. So this is what it looked like back in the day. So it's the one with the striped awning. That was the incubator space. And then our Main Street office was located right next door. So this space right here is all one building, and the bank owned the whole entire building. We were in one side, and then the incubator space was in the other. So just a little bit of history about this building. It is all one building. Like I said, there's 2 street level spaces, and then there's an upper level space. We occupied the larger space, which is about 1,600 square feet, for 12 years. And after that, we decided to purchase the building from the bank in 2008. So once we did purchase the building, we started renovating. Both of the spaces needed renovation work, and they actually started renovating the incubator space side, and our office moved to the smaller space. That 600 square foot space is where our office was located after the purchase of the building. And so they ended up renovating both sides. The board and volunteers did the renovation. So both spaces were fully renovated, kind of taken back to their original state. And then what happened was we started just incubating or renting out the other side. A lot of Main Street organizations buy their own buildings as a second source of income, and that is exactly why we did that. They purchased the building they had from the bank. They had a big donation made that paid for about half of the building purchase, and then they just used existing funds to pay for the rest. So once that it was renovated, like I said, the incubator program continued over the years in some way, shape, or form in that bigger space. And then in around 2016 and 2017, the board decided to renovate the upper level spaces, and they actually took out a loan to do this. And then our offices moved from the smaller space, so all in the same time frame. They were renovating the upper apartment areas, and then our office also moved to a different building down the street. We had a local building owner that is very pro Main Street, and they offered us an upper floor rental office space for an extremely discounted rate, and that allowed us to now rent out our previous office. So we were working on renovating a apartment, and we then had 2 rentable spaces below. So at the end of 2017, we had the upper space completed and then 2 lower level spaces available. So we had 3 actual spaces that we would be able to rent or incubate out to the community, because we were now in a new office down the street. So I think, Keith, the next slide has the new space. When they did the upper level, they decided not to make the 2 apartments. They actually left the wall between the 2 apartments down because we already had a renter for that space. So if it ever that renter moves out, we can just put the wall up and make 2 apartments, or we can keep it one big kind of office space. And that's what we've opted to do since it was completed in 2017. We've always had somebody up there just renting the whole space, but we do have the option to turn it into an apartment if needed. The incubator space now we had available was on the 2 main floors, and just to give you a little bit of history of how we have done incubator spaces since the bank, since those early days of the bank, it's really just been on a case-by-case basis. So obviously, everybody in our community knows that we have incubator spaces. So we get asked all the time when our spaces come for rent, can you do an incubator space? And there is a lot of misconception about what an incubator space is and what it means. So really the process is, we just put a sign in our window, we put it out on social media, let the local community know that we have a space for rent. And when businesses come in to look at it, lots of times they will just bring it up. They'll say, I heard you had an incubator space. What does that mean? What do I have to qualify? And so the way it has worked for the past several years is we talk to them, we find out what their business model is, kind of if they have a business plan, if they don't have a business plan, and then we sit down as an executive board and we just kind of hash it out, like, do they qualify? What rent rate do we want to offer? And it kind of has always varied based on the business coming in. But normally it is a reduced rent rate that increases to a full rent rate within 12 months. So it's usually about a 20% reduction to start with that gradually increases over the next 12 months to the full rent rate. And they are only required to sign a year lease. And then after that point, we can either sign them on for another year, or if they are ready to move on, they can. And we have done our incubator space in our smaller 600 square foot space, which was the original incubator space. And we've also done it in the larger 1,600 square foot space. We are currently incubating a barber shop that opened actually April 1st during the first day of the pandemic. And we do have the other side rented and the upstairs rented, but they're not doing incubator spaces. This is the some of the rehab that's been done. This is the shops that are in it now. And the barber shop is, like I said, the one that we're incubating in that smaller 600 square foot space. Some of our goals with our incubator program, I realized I've only been the director now almost 2 years, and I realized pretty quick that this kind of process that we've been using, it it doesn't, it needs fine tuning, I guess is the best words for it. So one of our work plan goals for this year is to sit down and really go over all of our rentable spaces and talk about if we want to incubate all of them, if we want to have just one designated space, what that rent rate's going to look like, you know, who actually qualifies. So then we don't have to keep calling meeting after meeting. I can meet with a prospective business owner and kind of check all those boxes. And I know, you know, this is how much it's going to cost and which spaces we're going to incubate. So it's just fine tuning kind of our program and really getting it into a comprehensive checklist type system. And we're working on that this year, and hopefully we will have that done, and it'll streamline the process. I did a little research to try to find out, because I figured people would ask, since we've had this incubator program for so long, do we have any success stories? And we've had a lot of incubator businesses over the years. We actually do have one business that was an incubator in 2002, and they are still a business in our downtown. So that's perhaps our biggest success story. And they went from the incubator space, they were in there about 18 months, and then they went to renting their own space, and then they went to buying their building. And they have been in business for almost 20 years now. So that's probably our biggest success story out of our incubator space. Most people still to this day, when we incubate them, only stay in there, not because of our preference, but they only stay in there about 2 to 3 years. Once they get to that full rent rate, they only stay in about 2 or 3 years. So I don't know if that's an indication of owning a small business. Some of them move out to bigger spaces in the community. Some of them, they just can't get a go of it even after 3 years. So that is our incubator space program currently. And I just will mention that when we moved up to our new office space down the street, there is the opportunity up in our new office space. There's several smaller offices. And so we are starting a new program. It's not really an incubator program, but it's a significantly reduced rent rate to rent out those office spaces. And we just started that basically last week. And we already have 2 of those spaces. 2 out of the 5 spaces are already rented within a week.
Cool. Jill, great. Thank you. I want to go back and ask, I want to show this picture. So your building is the building on the right.
Correct.
And you guys started in the bigger space, which would be the one on the right.
Correct,
and,
with a striped awning. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then progressed into the smaller space because you wanted to rent out the space there. Now you've totally moved out of that building into a second floor. So,
Correct.
I mean, it's a natural progression of a downtown and how you should be managing that first floor space, because that's ideal retail. And you don't have a ton of good rentable spaces in Warrensburg. So as you progressed, you realized you needed to free up that space. Is that correct?
Yes, that is why. Our downtown is pretty compact and small, and kind of our main 2 streets, there is not a lot of space ever really available.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided that we would move upstairs, and that would give us more ground level retail available for our community.
Your second floor of this building is still office space, correct?
Correct. It is still office space. We had both times, we've had 2 different tenants in there, and both companies have been a marketing company. The current marketing company that's up there now is actually looking at buying their own building in downtown. So the nice thing, like I said, the board thought ahead and did not make it the 2 apartments and started it out as just a big open space. So we always have that option. We are in a college and military community, so renting apartment spaces in downtown is pretty easy. But the other thing that you always need to think about as you grow as a Main Street and as you get, acquire buildings, is then you have to manage them. You have to make sure that people sign their leases and that the maintenance is done on them. And so there is that component of owning property is the time that it takes to manage them and to make sure they're in good repair and all of that part of property management.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. I know, we talk about Washington, Missouri a lot because they do own 4 buildings now, and they have a separate committee that manages their property management. How do you handle that, Jill, in Warrensburg?
Well, currently it's just our office that is handling it, but it is quickly, it's the staff, but it's quickly becoming, especially now that we have these office spaces where we're located that we're going to start to rent out. It is quickly becoming a lot. So it is also on our work plan this year to kind of figure that out, whether it's a committee or whether we hire a part-time person that's an office assistant, that's part of their job is to manage those properties. Because as we all know, these buildings are old and lots of little things, creep up and happen. And, you just always have to stay on top of, making sure that they're in good repair.
Okay, I'm going to circle back around with a follow-up question on that, Jill, but I want to ask Megan first too. How do you manage the property management side of owning a building?
Yep, so same thing, we do it out of our office. We have just the one building, so it's still doable.
Do you have a board member that particularly steps up and kind of addresses some of those things, or
yes,
do you
we have a couple, and some of them are pretty handy. So some of the stuff they are able to do, and other projects we hire out. But for the most part, yeah.
Have either of you considered a third-party management to handle the rental?
Well, like I said, we are going to start talking about all options, just because currently we have 5 spaces that we're managing. And obviously some of them are just office spaces, but you still have to get the rent and all, all that kind of good stuff. So we are thinking about all options. And then our board is also considering the building that our office is in. The gentleman is interested in selling. So we are also considering purchasing this building as well. So that would, this is a massive building. I think the downstairs is 8,000 square feet. So it is a massive building. So lots of things are in the works for us, just trying to get that piece of it, figuring out how the best to do it.
Okay. Megan, have you guys talked about with one building, maybe third party is not an option at this point?
Yeah, we haven't to this point, but it might be something we consider in the future.
Yeah, okay. So Jill, I want to circle back around on your buildings. Can we talk some financial stuff?
I hope so.
Well, actually, let's back up for a second. Megan explained how they did their renovation with general funds, and that most of that came from NAP. How did you pay for the renovations for this building on the screen?
So the downstairs was done by volunteers and by the board. Okay. I'm assuming, because that was way before my time, but that they either used general funds or that they got stuff donated.
Okay.
The upstairs that was done in 2017, they did get donated like the demo work, but then they took out a loan actually to complete all of the finishing work, and they hired somebody to do that. So they took out a loan to do that work. We have recently renovated our office space, and we just paid for that out of our general funds.
So by general funds, you would be saying fundraising, membership, sponsorships?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then what kind of revenue does this building bring in rent per month?
So if our building is completely rented, which it is right now, let me see, let me do the math real quick. 19 plus 9, 11, 16.
I didn't tell
her. I think it's about $1,200 a month. It's about $1,200 a month is what it brings into us.
Okay. And so do you take a portion of that and set it aside for maintenance issues, and then the rest goes into the general fund? How do you manage maintenance and things like that? Or does it have a separate account?
No, we just budget. When we do our budget, we put in maintenance for every building. And then all the funds just go into the budget, and then obviously the maintenance part comes out. Yeah.
Okay.
Plus that 1,200 is taking out utilities and the loan on the building.
Okay. So you're still paying off the loan from the second floor renovation?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Megan, did you guys have any take out a loan or need a loan for your renovation?
We did not. Mm-mm.
Okay. And when you owned the Mercantile, how much was the revenue from the vendors per month?
Their rent was $175 a month each
Okay.
vendor.
So times 9. Yep. Okay. Jill, what was the business that was successful that's almost been in operation for 20 years that you incubated out?
So it's actually the business right next to the teal awning on this picture, ironically enough. It's called Rockin' Sports, but it is a gaming resale store. So they have games, movies, records, all types of gaming consoles, and it's a resale store for that. So he buys and sells, but he also was very smart many years ago and started selling on eBay. So he sells probably more on eBay than he actually does through his storefront because his eBay store is so popular now. It's been around for a really long time. But yeah, he's been there for almost 20 years in that same building. And he has not renovated his upstairs. He only has his downstairs. He uses his upstairs for storage because, like I said, he has so much stock that he sells online as well as in his store.
Okay. So Jill, if you take on the new building, I would assume you would take out a loan to purchase it?
Well, this gentleman actually wants us to be able to pay our monthly payment based on the rent that is the business that's already downstairs. So it's the Salvation Army rents the downstairs. So he wants that to be our payment. So he doesn't want us to actually have to take out a loan or pay anything more. So that is the plan is, and then we just have to come up with the terms. How long are we going to be paying that fee? And so he doesn't want us to have to take out a loan. So we're just trying to work through that process. Owning a building of this size is a little daunting. It has a lot of little quirks and stuff. We just know from being up in this office for several years now. So we should know about that if we're going to have that in the next 6 months or so, if we're going to be owners of a new building in downtown.
Okay. Great. Well, I want to remind folks, type in your any last minute questions that you may have. I did share Jill's email address also in one of the answers to a question that someone asked, so that you all have access to that. So let's kind of do a takeaway. Megan, after doing the Mercantile as an incubator and being a business owner or property owner, what piece of advice would you have to a Main Street program that is considering doing an incubator space?
Yeah, I definitely think our starting point of getting those responses from the community was key, because out of those, we were able to really sort them and study them and see what the community wanted, what the community would support. So that I think that was a very good starting step. And after that, just really getting everyone involved. Everyone has, their area of expertise that they bring to the table, and it takes everyone to make it happen.
As you said, it takes a village.
That's right.
Jill, what would your words of wisdom be?
I think that if you're going to start an incubator program, I think smaller spaces do better for incubator spaces because obviously the rent is cheaper and people like that smaller space. I feel like new business owners feel like it's more manageable to have a smaller space. So if you have that option, I would definitely recommend that. And kind of set up we're kind of doing it a little backwards, where I was saying we're having to fine tune, make the process easy on yourself and kind of set up your parameters. If a new person comes in, how do they qualify to be an incubator? It's just a little checklist. This is what they have to do. And what's our rent going to be? Is that going to include utilities? Are utilities going to be extra? So then when you have a new person, you don't have to gather your board or your building committee or however you guys have it divided. You can, as the director or the board president, can sit down and be like, yep, you qualify. You've checked all these boxes. This is the lease that you're going to have available to you, and just kind of streamline your process to avoid extra meetings and and extra text messages, and just also realize that when you incubate a business that they're going to need support through the whole process. They're going to need you to check in on them and give them some extra support as well.
Great. Yeah, have that support system. Okay, had a couple additional questions come through. Have either of you done short-term or weekend pop-up shops?
So we did a couple of years ago. We had in our incubator space, it was vacant. It had been vacant for a month or two, and we did have some girls that were doing a clothing store out of their houses, and we did allow them to pop up in there for the weekend and just charge them. I can't remember what the rate was, but it was just a simple flat rate. The utilities were already on and everything, and so they just moved everything in for the weekend and had their because they already had a business license with the city, so we just had them move in and then they were up for the weekend.
Okay, Megan, you did the food truck.
We have not, but with the food truck, there were a couple of online-based boutiques and businesses that would pop up at the same time as the food truck days in the downtown.
Okay. And I will say when we started putting this topic together, we don't tend to have a lot of our Main Street programs do pop-up shops. I don't know if it's just being more rural and having a smaller population base, but I think a lot of our Main Street programs do them through festivals, or, if there are events where people are going from business to business, people will pop up inside of that business with a small home-based business to test out the market. So I think that's a lot about how that takes place in our community. Jill, for your example, as a follow-up for your pop-up, how much did you charge per square foot, or how did you charge them?
We just charged them a flat fee. I think it was $100 for the weekend.
Okay. Megan, how did you survey the community to gain their thoughts on what would go into the Mercantile?
So we did just very simple. We had a whiteboard set up and we had markers. People would just write on there what they wanted to see.
Okay, cool, great. Yeah, that's a fun thing to do, is just use the storefront as a way for people to share their thoughts. That's great. Jill, this is probably more geared towards you. Since COVID, have there been requests for shared workspaces? I know in your new area that may be conducive to some shared workspace. Have you considered that?
We did consider that up here, shared workspace, and we kind of circled around it, and honestly, it just came down to the management of it. A shared workspace, it does take a lot of time to manage it and make it successful. And so we had some people that were interested in the spaces, just renting them outright. One's a massage therapist and one's a microblader. So they kind of just happened all in the same week, and it put us in a different direction, I guess, is the best way to say that. I'm like everybody else. I hear a lot of people talking about shared workspaces, but we haven't actually had anybody ask us about that. And I think maybe we are about 45 minutes from Kansas City, so we may just be a little bit too far out that people aren't going to pay the kind of money needed that we would need for a workspace when they can just work from home.
Yeah, and I've been curious about, like WeWork and some of those other places in some of the more metropolitan areas, but you're gathering together as a group,
right.
In more of a group setting. I've wondered how that's been affected by COVID. What I have been hearing is hotels renting out space, guest rooms that normally would be pretty empty now, so that parents can get away from maybe kids when they have calls and things that they need to do in a kind of a interruption-free zone. I thought that's been interesting. And then let's go to, the last question. Oh, well, let's talk about, and actually maybe Gayla can help with this too, because I think the NAP funds, Megan, that you talked about were before your time. NAP is the Neighborhood Assistance Program. And just in my little bit of knowledge, I know that the governor had removed the funding for NAP during COVID, but I believe yesterday on a call that staff call that we had, they have put those funds back. So the Neighborhood Assistance Program funds are back available. It's a tax credit program. There's an application process. And for those of you that asked, you can find that on the Missouri Department of Economic Development's website. Is that right, Gayla? You're on mute, Gayla.
Sorry about that. Yes, that is correct. And we're really excited that it's back because it is a great tool for downtown revitalization in many ways. I do have a text question. So this is from a local director to another local director. I think maybe, you know, as she says, I don't want to be criticized in the chat box. So the question is, what committee really takes care of your all's incubator space and overseeing this within a committee work plan?
For us, it would fall under EV. So we put our farmers market under EV as well, because that is a source for us to incubate businesses as well through our farmers market. And we put ours under EV.
Okay.
Ours the Mercantile kind of incorporated all of them. When we were, you know, working on the open house, that summer we hosted a paint party. And then, you know, our EV, you know, working on the businesses. And so ours kind of was a combination. We didn't have a specific one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could see where the promotion could be involved for sure. Design of the building, etc.
Yes.
Yep. And particularly when they own the Mercantile, you know, promotions being the marketing arm of it. Yep, that would make sense.
Okay, the other question is, would you guys share with us, so we can put on the resource library, your all's rental agreements, kind of what your all's looks like? If you guys would share those for samples that we could put it in the resource library, they would like to see those. And actually, one of those questions came from one of our urban districts. So.
Yep. And I was going to say the same thing, Gayla. I have a question about the application, Megan, that you guys use. I know you said it was simple, but folks would like to see, you know, what you asked. So if you would share that with us also, we'll put that in our resource library and share that with folks. So, all right. Great.
You did a marvelous job.
Yes.
Hey.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Very successful.
And one other person asked real quick, yes, we do record these and they are all available. It'll be available, usually takes us about 24 hours to get everything finished and uploaded. So it will be on our momainstreet.org website under our COVID resources page. So we appreciate everybody participating today. Gayla, let's do a quick commercial for next month. We are working on a fundraising for Main Street. So for your Main Street program, we're still putting the details on this, but we have heard from some of our Main Street directors that have really been able to adjust with Missouri Main Street. We're not using the word pivot anymore. We've changed it. We're done with pivot. Some of our Main Street programs have done some fantastic jobs with adjusting their fundraising last year. And I think these are lessons that we can take with us as we move forward on how to just be a little more dynamic in our fundraising efforts. So we're putting that together still. We've got the skeleton structure. We just have to put the rest of the details to it. And that'll be on March the 3rd.
Also, I want to go ahead and mention too, we have our quarterly workshop coming up in March, and that is Ben Muldrow, and be for sure to look at our website about that too, because it's going to be a really great workshop on March the 12th.
Yep, great. Thank you, everybody. Megan, Jill, thank you very much. Great job. Thanks for sharing what you guys have done in Trenton and Warrensburg, and we'll see you guys next month.
Bye, everyone.